drives you? What inspires you? Let's ignite your why. Welcome back to Ignite Your Why podcast. I'm your host, Austin T. Gullett, and we're here to have genuine conversations with authentic people to help amplify their voice and figure out what ignites their why. Today's guest was born and raised in Germany, and in 2013, she moved over to the United States. She graduated from Ryle High School in Northern Kentucky, and she's an alumnus of Northern Kentucky University, where she studied psychology. North up, baby. Then she went on to study at the University of Cincinnati, where she got her master's in clinical mental health counseling and is currently working as a therapist at a mental health facility here in the Greater Cincinnati area. With that being said, let's give a warm welcome to Viviane Johnson. Viviane, how are you doing today?
Hi, how are you, Austin?
I'm good. I wore my bingo stuff today, you know. I usually wear the better school in Cincinnati when I have people that go to UC on here. So
hey, I love the representation. That's awesome. You know, support the local team, support the local things in Cincinnati. I'm definitely a fan.
I feel you. I'm surprised I didn't do your intro as like she went to the second best college in Cincinnati, but
right? It's all good.
I love giving my UC friends crap, so it is all good. I'm super happy to have you on. Excited to chop it up with you, and I know we've hung out a few times, but I'm excited to go with a deeper dive into your story. So, speaking of your story, what is your story?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, there's been so much that's happened in my life that's made my story very significant for me personally, in that I've learned so much over the years. But more than anything, I had a very unique kind of growing up from a lot of my peers that I was surrounded, especially as a young adult. I was really born and raised in Germany, as you kind of was just mentioning. Was raised in Germany, grew up there, lived my whole life there, literally till 2013, which is when I moved to the United States. I've lived here now since I've moved from 2013, so it's literally my second home. I always consider it. But growing up in Germany was an awesome experience. I'm so grateful for just the stories I have, for the memories, for the culture, the language that I learned that my mom taught me growing up. That was something so significant in my growing up, is that we had a 2-language household. So my parents, my dad, he's African American, and my mom is German and Caucasian. So it was something, to learn how to navigate both sides of those cultures was very interesting for me, especially as a young kid. Also living in a different country too, you are often looked at a little differently,
Yeah.
You're not typically the, I don't know how you'd probably phrase it, the norm. But it was something, that you learn to adjust to. So I think that was something very significantly I learned as a young age, was how to adjust and how to adjust quickly, because a lot of people don't know this about me, but the people who are in my life who do know me really well, they know I'm from a military family. My dad, active duty for over 25 years, retired now. So I'm very happy for him and what he's doing now, and that he's safe and that he's home. And so, yeah, we grew up with a military lifestyle. So it was like we had the best of both worlds, literally, right, where we had American culture still, even with living in a whole different country. And I think it's something that I hope everyone gets to experience at one point or another, or going to a different country, living in a different country other than the United States, because it is such a valuable thing to experience. And I traveled, luckily, so much, and I'm so grateful for it as a young girl, to go to different countries in Europe too, because the transportation system in Germany, let me tell you, is amazing.
Not in the United States.
No, I went to New York recently, and let me tell you, I think they got something going on there.
The subway is so effective in New York. I will not lie.
I know my boyfriend.
Yeah, I went back in college, and it was definitely eye-opening, especially because I feel like I've lived in a bubble my whole life, just here in like the Northern Kentucky, Greater Cincinnati area. And I was going to ask you if you were like a military. So like, were you living on a military base in Germany?
So yes and no. The community that we lived in was still on the German economy, but a lot of what we grew up with was being surrounded by a lot of American military families who either were from the U.S. and just were stationed in Germany. But we did have that contact with a lot of German civilians, so it was really cool because my brother and I, like, we loved playing sports growing up, so we really, my parents were very much like, you gotta get engaged in the sports in this community too, just as much as you would in the military side of it. And so we were really accustomed to both sides, which was so awesome. So I'm really appreciative of that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Like my dad was a part of a military family as well, and I believe he
Mhm.
spent a few years in Germany and in Texas, and ultimately ended
Nice.
up back here in Northern Kentucky when he was about 5. So it's definitely
Yeah.
interesting to hear people's stories and just like
Yeah.
the military life is it takes strong people. I will say that.
That is the best way to describe
I
it.
can't necessarily attest to it because I don't know like that feeling, but I can only imagine the emotions and the craziness that life can bring when you have someone who's serving in the active duty. So, shout out to
Yeah.
Pops. Appreciate him. Thank you for your
Yes.
service. If you're listening to this, it doesn't go unnoticed.
Oh, I will let him know, and I tell him all the time. He's such an awesome person. He's taught me so much about this life that I'm living, and he's one of the biggest reasons why I got into the work that I do now. But more than anything, like you were just saying, it takes a lot of strong will and energy and emotion work to really go through those kind of things because being a military child, people often call it being a military brat. I don't like to refer it as that, but um, um, it's an adjustment a lot because my brother and myself, we actually moved pretty much like all the time growing up.
Hmm.
So we were still in Germany, but we moved to different schools or we just moved to different environments. So that's something already to have to adjust to. And when you're young and you're impressionable or you are experiencing all of these milestones in life, you then, you have to have that understanding of like, oh, this is my norm. Is this going to be my whole life? But then you get older and you start to understand like why you do this and why our parents are making these sacrifices for us. And so you just have a newfound, in my own personal opinion, you have a very big respect for that type of lifestyle once you get to a certain age and you start to really understand the sacrifices your parents do make for you, even though it's so challenging. And they see
Hmm.
that. My parents were always so sweet and so accommodating and helpful to my brother and I about like helping us adjust to new communities. So I'm like so grateful for that lifestyle.
I
But yeah, it's
literally had this
very different.
conversation with someone, not this exact conversation, but I had this conversation with someone else on my podcast a few weeks ago where I was just like, we don't really appreciate all the things and all the sacrifices our parents do for us until we get older. And I think
No,
it's
seriously.
crazy that even if like we were necessarily like struggling, like parents try to find a way to hide it from their kids because they want their kids just to have the best life possible. And
Yeah.
they it I appreciate my parents so much, and you really truly don't understand until you get to that age where you're just like thinking
Yeah.
back and you're like, damn, they really did so much for me. And it's just
I
so
know.
wild. And
Yeah.
parents truly are blessings, and we don't,
Yeah.
sometimes we take them for granted. So appreciate them while they're
Yeah.
here, y'all. Appreciate them while they're here.
Oh, I 100% definitely agree with that. And even in times when we're upset with them, later on, you'll start to see why, like, oh, this is clicking now.
Hmm.
Like the things that people will often think about parenting or anything like that. Like, I see that so much in the work that I do now, but it is really important that you do kind of reflect on that and
It's
take that
crazy. I don't
time.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're religious or not, but I have this verse on my shoulder, John
Okay.
13:7, that says,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you'll
Oh,
understand." And I feel like it's like a testament where it's just like whatever you're going through in life, whatever's happening, it may not make sense in the moment, and you probably might question like, why me? Why now? But eventually in life, like it's all gonna make sense. Like you're gonna look back and think like, oh, I now understand why I went through what I went through, because I wouldn't be the person I am today without those experiences. Good or
100%.
bad, good or bad, like life is a roller coaster. So you just gotta buckle it up and enjoy the ride.
You couldn't set up any better myself. I mean, every single life lesson I've had in my life, I contribute to the things that I've learned, the things that I've experienced in life, and it just made me into the person I am today. And I would never change a single thing about the way that I grew up or the way that I live my life now,
Mhm.
too, because I think every single choice we make in life leads us to where we are going or where we want to be. And it's all about instinct sometimes and just taking life as it
Yep.
goes, and also not taking life too serious sometimes too, just enjoying the ride and knowing that yes, we're going to have stressful days, we're still going to have times where we question our judgment or question our choices, but that's the part of being also in our 20s, and or in our teens, and just having life
Hmm.
moments. It's a beautiful thing. And I love that people start to see that more and more, especially on the internet or in social media, and people are doing things for themselves to really just take that time. So, yeah,
Live with
I
no
love,
regrets. No regrets.
yes, no regrets out here.
I do have one more question before we hop into this next segment here, because I'm very
Yeah.
curious. So I can only imagine the culture shock coming over to the States.
Hmm.
So what was that like for you, and how did you adjust to that big life change?
Yeah, I cried a lot. No, it was something. It was definitely a huge adjustment. Like, obviously the United States is a beautiful country. It's encapsulates so many different cultures, so many different people. So I think the coming to America, it was for me something that I definitely had to like take a lot of time with my family, just personally and very intimately, and talk about like the changes that are going to happen, and really sit down. Like my mom, for example, I remember, and this was so long ago, which is crazy, but I sat down with her and I was like questioning, like, can we move back to Germany? Like my experience is horrible. Of course, this was like the first month I'm living in America, and so I'm obviously in culture shock. But the school that I attended prior to graduating, it wasn't the greatest,
Where did you
but it was all.
go?
I went to Boone County High School, but it was also a place where I gained so many friends, and I had such a wonderful experience in gaining new friendships and learning just how to navigate that
Hmm.
with the people that I did meet. And so I'm actually still friends with a lot of people that I went there with, and I still try to reconnect with them even to this day. So it is something I never, regretted going to. I know my parents, they were like, well, we're moving to Boone County, so maybe Boone County High School is the place to go. And of course, we didn't really know anyone here, so it was
Right.
hard for us to make our decision and not have anything to really base it off of. So, kudos to my parents for doing the best work they possibly could do, especially coming to a whole new country, moving a whole family, man. Like, that is kudos to them for sure.
Hey, I can only imagine, but I will say Boone County is a very, very diverse school. They have
Yes.
kids from all over the countries, like not all
Mm-hmm.
over the countries, all over from different countries. And like there's so many different cultural backgrounds at that school. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like a bad landing spot. I will say that. But I can only imagine just the difference, because I feel like sometimes kids can be mean, like very mean,
Yeah.
especially to like new kids. And I bet you got so many questions of like, oh,
Yeah.
like you grew up in Germany but you don't look like you're from, like I can only
Right?
imagine the questions that people were giving you, because kids have no filters and they will just ask questions.
I have the funniest story from that actually, because I'm not even kidding, I think it was my first day of school. And I was in my German class because unfortunately the credits that I had when I was taking German in,
Yeah.
like I was in high school for 1 year when I was still in Germany. So the credits from that high school unfortunately didn't transfer, which was a big bummer. But I was like, I speak the language, easy credit, hopefully. But it
Hold
was
on.
something.
Keep talking. You're good. You're good.
You're good.
My phone's
But it was something that I was like, all right, I'll take it just to take it. And I enjoyed the class anyway. The teacher was awesome. She ultimately became my dance coach, actually. Shout out to Miss Hensel if you're watching this.
Hey, awesome. We love teachers that make impacts.
She's amazing. I know. Shout out to you too, Mr. Athletic Director. But it was a really cool experience. But the funny story is that on my first day of class, someone asked me, "There's Black people in Germany?" And I was like,
yeah.
Yes.
I'm living proof.
I don't know how else to put it, but it was a funny moment, and I will always remember that. That was like the first real person experience, student to student, that I had.
Yeah.
And it was just like,
because I think we're so sheltered here. Like, we are so sheltered that we are so unaware of what goes on in this world.
Yes. Unfortunately, but no, even the experience, like you were saying, Boone County is really diverse. And I think I went back actually a couple years ago when I was attending Gateway, which was a community college that helped me kind of transfer over to Northern successfully. But I went back and I actually got to speak to some of the students at Boone County, seeing their updated building. They recreated so much new stuff there. And I was like, wow, that's awesome that they're doing that. Wish that was happening when I was there, but
that's when it always happens. It always happens when you're gone. It always happens when you're gone.
Really though. And no, the students there, they were just so hopeful and excited for the future. And it was really cool to just see how much representation there is from different backgrounds, so many people. And I really enjoyed seeing that and seeing that represented at the school and seeing how much they're trying to make changes for the students too, because I know that nowadays, high school is such an important place in a lot of kids' lives. So, you want that to be a place where they can learn, but also take life lessons and really gain more perspectives from teachers or from other students or from family members, doing sports or getting involved in musicals or anything like that. That shapes a whole person's life in sometimes the best way possible. And so, I'm glad that Boone County is making strides, and they're doing such an excellent job already just to kind of encapsulate all of that. So yeah.
Hey, I totally feel it. I think high school is a pivotal moment in a lot of kids' lives. It's where they kind of, I wouldn't say kind of, it's where they start learning who they are and things of that nature. But I think college and life after high school is where you figure that stuff out too. So it's definitely a journey. Like we said, you just got to enjoy the ride and see what happens. So I kind of want to go into this next segment here. It's a big chunk of this whole podcast. It's kind of the purpose of this whole podcast. So what is it that truly inspires you? But more importantly, what is it that ignites your why?
I love this question. Well, what really drives not just what I do professionally, but personally, is having independence and knowing that a lot of the things that my parents taught me or that my friends taught me, or even, significant others or siblings, is that it's super important nowadays to have independence and to be able to rely on not just yourself, but knowing that even in times where you struggle or days that are really rough, that that you've accomplished things that you can be proud of. And it gives you this push, it gives you this fire to continue, and to even in times, because I myself, a lot of people don't know, I suffer with depression quite a bit, especially as I got older. And so it was something that I had to really dig deeper and to take time to practice self-care or to just do things for myself that I never had done before, but really to rediscover myself in some ways, because the fuel that you have, you got to keep it lit. You got to find ways to spark that spark, and for me, it was independence. That was always kind of the biggest thing that drove me to do what the things that I did, from high school to college to graduate school to where I am now. Every single year that I was involved in something, I knew that I had to push myself. I had to challenge myself in some regard to get to that place, because
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I wanted to achieve that goal of being independent. I wanted to try my very, very best, because my mom always showed me that she was a very independent woman growing up. And she taught me so much about how she, never really relied on others. And she really wanted to make herself a career and have skills and, be able to transfer those to anything that she did. And so nowadays it's so important, especially for young women, to know, like, it's important to have skills, but it's also important to take that time and really decide what you want to do, or find a way to fuel your fire. Like, I always tell people that, especially my clients or even friends, like, find things that you're really passionate about and really try to, like, hone in on that as much as you
Mm-hmm.
can, because it really changes the way you view work or going to school or doing things. Like, if you are so, like, complacent and you're just going to work every day, you're
It's
not
not
going to
fun.
enjoy it
No.
as much if you are truly passionate about it, or if you were really trying to do something
Mm-hmm.
you enjoy, because I remember earlier on in my college career, I was, very much interested in doing something in the helping profession, whether that was like nursing or education. And I sort of landed in some ways in kind of the middle of
In the
that, with
middle.
counseling. Yeah. But it took a lot of different experiences, a lot of challenges for me, a lot of stepping out of
Yep.
my comfort zone to really decide on what I felt like was the best fit for me, but also not relying on other people's opinions or comparing myself to others. Because I will tell you now, I did a lot of that growing up.
It's so
Um,
easy. Like, it
it's the
is
easiest
so
thing to do.
easy. You can
It's like a
see,
trap.
yeah, you can see Susie over here or
Yeah.
Johnny over there doing X, Y, and Z. But I
Yeah.
tell people all the time is like, your journey is unique to you, right? It is so
Absolutely.
easy to compare to other people. But what you need to really hone in on is like, this is my story. This is my journey. And it might look
Hmm.
different, but I'm going to do
Yeah.
what I need to do to succeed. And
Exactly.
it takes that fight. It takes that dog. Like, you have to believe in yourself. And like you were
Mm-hmm.
attesting to, is it really comes down to like, do you have yourself? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't rely on people to continuously like be there for you and push you and things of that nature. Like, you got to
Mm-hmm.
have that fight for yourself. Like, you got to
Yeah.
protect your peace, protect yourself. Like,
Yeah.
know your value and know your worth. I think that's the biggest thing. I was literally having this conversation
Yes.
earlier with someone today, is like, I know my value, right? I know what I bring to the table. I know what kind of worker I am, and I know like what I deserve. And
Mm-hmm.
the person that's going to fight for you the hardest is yourself.
Yeah.
So you have to have that self-love. And I know it's hard sometimes, and it's so
Oh,
easy
yes.
to compare yourself to other people. But
Mm-hmm.
whoever is listening to this right now, I want you to remember one thing, that your journey is unique to you. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
have the power to write your own story. And regardless of what happens, you have to keep fighting, right?
Yes.
You have to keep pushing, and you have to believe in yourself, because you can be successful and you will be successful. You just have to believe it yourself. And that's,
I
I
love
had to get
that.
that off my chest. I was feeling super passionate right there, but it's
Yes.
so true. And I tell kids all the time, it's like, people are so quick to just define themselves off of just like where they come from and things of that nature. Where I
Mm-hmm.
come from, yes, it plays a part of who I am, but it doesn't define me, right? I can
Exactly.
be anyone I can be anyone I want to be. I can be anybody I want to be. And I have
Yeah.
to believe that, and I have to fight for it. And
Yeah.
anything is possible. Anything is possible. You just have to
Anything.
believe. And I feel like I'm being so cliche right now, but it is
No.
so freaking true. And
I will tell you one thing that I always tell my kids: do not dim your light, because your light is super powerful and it is something so beautiful, and we can't dim it. We can't hide behind it. Let it go. Let
no,
it be powerful. Let it be bright.
period. Ignite that flame.
Yes.
Ignite your why. Literally ignite your why.
Yes.
That's what it's all
Ignite
about.
it.
Like, we all have a flame, and we all have that light inside of us, and share it with the world. Like, you're not going to please
100%.
everyone along the way. Like, I think
Oh
people
no.
need to get that out of their heads. People are going to talk about you. They're going to
Yeah.
disagree with you, but as long as you're doing what you want to do, that's all that
Mm-hmm.
really matters to me.
No,
Just make
for
yourself
real.
happy. Your happiness
I
and your peace.
Yeah.
Protect it.
I 100% agree, and that kind of ties into exactly what you were saying too, of not comparing yourself to anybody else, but also not listening to the negative naysayers
Mhm.
or the haters, if you will. But it's more about just finding truly what you're passionate about. I remember growing up, I had some experiences maybe where, like, my family was like, can you make a career with psychology? Like, is that a
Mm-hmm.
possibility? But I was like, no, I love this work. I'm going to find a way, regardless of anyone's personal emotions about it.
Period.
And I did, it was something that took a lot of time, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
reflection, but also just putting forth more effort into it and just identifying different experiences. Like, I went so many different directions with psychology. I did internships, I did research experiences, and that all kind of tied into everything that I wanted to do. And I was just kind of dabbling, it was less of, getting more things on my resume, but more just wanting experience in this
Mm-hmm.
field and seeing like what it's really like. Because at the end of the day, if you are picking and choosing a career, or if you're going in a certain direction, you want to know what you're stepping into first, right?
Right.
You don't want to come in and be like, oh wait, I actually don't like this and I am now in debt, right? But it's
Hey,
definitely
you don't
something
know until you
worthwhile.
don't try. You don't know until you don't try.
Exactly. You
And
have no idea until you don't try.
hey, sometimes you try shit and you're just like, this ain't for me though. I gotta bounce.
Agreed.
But here's my thing. I said this on the last episode and I'm gonna say it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mentor has this rule for me, and like we talk about it all the time, where it's like if I try something, say I get a job, right? I have to stay for at least 1 year, right?
Yeah,
Because you don't know if you truly enjoy something until you try it. And you're not
I
going to know
agree.
in a week, you're not going to know in a month. Like, give it
Mm-hmm.
time and
Yeah.
see if it plays out. And after that year, if you hate it, all right, see ya.
No, for real. I can only give like little pieces of advice because I'm still very early on in my career, but it's one thing that my family always taught me. This was, it's so important to not have gaps in your resume, because nowadays employers are really looking for how long you're staying at a job.
Mhm.
So what you just said is like completely accurate. Like, it is super important to just try it out. Try, and you never know, in a couple months, 6 months, 9 months down the
It
road,
could
you may enjoy
change.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could change. And
Yeah.
change is scary. Change
So
is
scary.
different. And I think it's you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, especially in those
Agreed.
situations. So
Yes.
it's
Couldn't have said it any
definitely
better myself.
I appreciate like all the work that you do. I feel like you're valued. Like the value of your work is so important. And if no one tells
Thank
you
you.
that, like you are making a difference every single day. So always remember that. I don't want you
Thank
to forget
you.
it. So
Thank
kind of makes me
you.
want to lead into my next segment here, my favorite
Okay,
segment.
let's do it.
So you being a mental health professional and just having an advocate and like being an advocate for mental health in general, how
Mhm.
have you been taking care of yourself mentally?
I listen, let me tell you something. So, most people I know who work in like a helping field, they're the hardest ones to get to do self-care, if you ask me, because we're so driven to try to help, help, help. And when
Hmm.
it's time for us to take a step back and to genuinely take care of ourselves, I don't know how many people I know who are like, oh man, like I definitely got to like put it on my calendar, or like really just block out time, and like, because this work is a lot. It's really a
Hmm.
lot, but it's also so important and it's so meaningful and so rewarding. But no, I over the years I have learned religiously how to take care of myself now. And for me, I think self care, the whole basis of it, like the words itself, speak so true to taking care of yourself, right? But it's more than that. It's about being mindful. It's about really genuinely looking at your inner self and your inner child too, and taking
Hmm.
care of that person too, because we often forget about our inner child. Like, we are 20 somethings and we are working on a daily basis, meeting all these social expectations. But really, our inner child sometimes is healed in the best ways by doing things that we maybe missed out on, or really genuinely just want to engage in, right? So for me, a lot of times that could just be alone time or spending time, with someone who I genuinely do care about. And I know sometimes people are like, you're hanging out with others? Like, no, I feel like sometimes self care is what you truly define it for
Hmm.
you. And it's very personal, right? So take that time to truly identify what it is that you do enjoy. I love music so much. And so I will blast it in the shower. I blast it on the way to work. I will find a playlist that I do enjoy. I have a bunch of playlists for different moods on my Spotify
As
account.
you
So,
should. As you
you
should.
know, some days I want to listen to Adele. The other days I want to listen to McMill, so it just depends on my mood. And I will never shy away from some good music. It just, for me, it like lifts my soul and I love it so much. So
Music is
yeah,
healing. Music
it
is
is.
healing. And
It
it's
so much
so
is.
crazy. Everyone gets on my car and they're like, Austin, your music is so fucking sad. And I'm like, then don't come in my car.
Exactly. You don't have to participate.
Like, you don't have to listen. Like, let me be sad. Like, damn.
Exactly. Allow me to feel my feelings. That is the best thing anyone can do for anyone,
Like,
Just be in
I
that space.
promise you, my music is like 90% sad music.
Here's the thing. I will yell Adele at the top of my lungs. Or
I
any type of music.
fire.
No, for real. It is so therapeutic to listen to music or just to engage in something that is enjoyable for yourself. So I love that you asked that question because it is not looked at enough in this world, especially among young Black professionals, or even like those who work on a daily basis or who take on so much in this world. To me, self-care is so important, and I hope that if anyone listens to this, please do. Austin's awesome.
Thank you.
Take care of yourselves. Like, engage in something that's truly like mindful, and you are putting forth energy into that awareness, and you are genuinely seeking out positive things for you personally, right? Because self-care could look so different for Austin. It could look so different for
I was just about to say that.
Anyone else, right?
It looks different for everyone. Like, for me, like,
Yeah.
it's this podcast. It's being able to have these deep conversations and just getting to engage with people. My therapist tells me all the time, she's like, you're a connector, which is probably why you enjoy your podcast, because you get to connect and make meaningful connections. I think that's super important for me. That's just how I like it. It fuels me. Like, I love being able to connect and help people and help give advice and guide them to the path of success. And it's just, you can tell when I talk about it. Like, my therapist says it all the time. She's like,
when you talk about, you're glowing.
Yeah. She's like, when you talk about your podcast, like, you are glowing. And it's just like one of those things where it seriously brings me so much joy, and I just really truly thank everyone who listens and supports this, because it wouldn't be possible without them. So it's just exciting. I just love it.
I love it for you.
Thank you.
I love seeing your growth as well, because I've seen so many of your podcasts, and I'm just so in awe of like how dedicated you are, how many seasons you brought out, and how willing you are to really just kind of listen to other people's stories. And so, I appreciate you, Austin.
Thank you. Because people's stories are important. And I feel like I've had guests in the past where they're just like, oh, like, I'm not that interesting. And in reality, like, yes, you are. Like, you're unique, you're yourself, and your story does matter, because by sharing your story, you have no idea like who you're going to touch. Like, you could be the survival guide for someone else, because they could be going through something very similar to what you've experienced. And you never know until you share that piece of you and share your story. So that's why this platform is here. So yeah, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to come on and chop it up and share a piece of you with the world. So if anyone wants to continue having a conversation with you about anything that we've discussed today, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, I'm big on social media, so feel free to DM me on Instagram. Austin has all my handles, so he'll probably connect that through Instagram in some way. However, yeah, feel free to always DM me. I try to be available all the time. Not all the time, because I do my self-care. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb sometimes.
Hey, my phone is on Do Not Disturb.
After about 9 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning or so, you will not hear from me, unfortunately.
My phone is on Do Not Disturb 90% of the time.
And that's okay. And that is okay. That is valid. Because let me tell you, Do Not Disturb is a magic button that I discovered in my 20s, and I'm happy that I discovered that, because You
I'm glad
have
they
to.
have these focus modes now, and I have my
Yes.
notification silenced for
I have
everyone
so
besides
many
like a
modes.
handful of people. And people tell me all the time where it's like your phone's always on do not disturb. It's because I don't want to talk to
Yes.
people.
And that's okay.
Which is crazy
That's
because I
okay.
have this podcast where I talk to people. But it's
No,
just
you're
like
totally fine.
I get so busy where it's like when I finally have time to like myself, like I just want to chill. I just want to relax.
Yeah.
And it's
And
nothing.
you gotta set that boundary.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's valid. Like, I
Yeah.
think so many people, especially in our age, like, you want to be more available, or you want to be so, involved in social media or anything like that. But the reality of it is, if you pour too much in other people's cups, you won't be able to pour in your own. And you want to do that more often than not. That's self care. That is something you truly have to do more often than
Period.
not. So pour into your
Period.
own cup.
Yes. No, I do want to say just thank you again for taking the time out of your day and hopping on. I really do appreciate it. It's been a pleasure having you on. And I want to thank
Thank you.
everyone for no problem, no problem. I want to thank all of you for listening in. I'm going to put all of Viv's information in the description below. If you all happen to reach out to her, please, please just make sure you notate on how you found her. I'm sure she will appreciate it. Again, thank you all for tuning in, and make sure you give us a follow on all social media platforms. You can find us at Ignite Your Why. That's INGYTE, not with an I. So make sure you give us a follow. We're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, you name it, we're there. So make sure you give us a follow. And always
Please go
remember,
follow
guys.
him.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
He's awesome.
Always remember, guys, find your purpose, ignite your why, and I'll holler at you later. Peace.
Bye, guys.